Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of Advent here at Sanctuary Online. We're so happy to welcome you again. I think these are all familiar faces. And so I'm going to skip a little bit of the detail. Most of you know we love it when you share your screen and share your video with us if you can, so we can see each other and connect, as that's part of what hopefully Sanctuary in the Woods is providing as a source of connection for everyone. Dr. Aaron, we know you're driving and we don't need to look up your nostril, so that's a good look on you. Black is slimming. You look fabulous. And here comes some more folks coming in, Edie and Mandy coming in. So again, just for a part of the time tonight, I'm gonna go ahead and pin Ken, just so he's a little bit larger for the teaching piece, and then we'll come back to a gallery view for our time together of sharing. Just want to remind you all, communication wise, we have a text feature, and if you forget that it's Tuesday often, like I do, if you'd like to put your cell phone in the chat tonight, Barb will scrape it up and she will send you just a single line text on Tuesdays that says, hey, it's Tuesday and it's Advent week 2, and a way to remember. Also, if you enjoyed any of our shows and you'd like to show somebody else or you can watch it again, we post the most recent recording on our Facebook page, Sanctuary in the Woods. So you can always get it there. In addition, if we have your email address, and if we don't, you can put that in the chat as well. And we will send you just one email a week, normally near the end of the week, and it has a link to our YouTube channel so you can see any of the recorded shows we've done. And also that email normally tells you a few things about what's coming up at Sanctuary in the Woods. So tonight is week 2 of Advent. Again, for many of you, that's on Sunday, last Sunday. So for us, it's a Tuesday night event. And without spoiling the show, tonight is going to be how fire and light are used in the Hindu and Buddhist traditions. So very excited about that. Next week, we're doing Islam. And next week, we're also, during our community conversation, going to talk about acts of service. So if there's something that you do, or maybe your family does, or an organization that you're a part of, they do some kind of act of service to make the season even better for somebody who may not be that well off, we'll have to ask you to share stories about that. And then Advent 4 on the 21st will be Christianity, and we'll be talking about our most memorable holidays, those evenings in the communication piece. Now, you guys know I always brag on our book club, and this month we are taking the last week of the month off, and so actually in January 25th we'll be reading and discussing our reading of The Personal Librarian. I don't know if many of you are Marie Benedict fans. This has just been a phenomenal, it's got phenomenal reviews, this book. And so you've got 2 months to read it. So enjoy, take your time, 5 pages a day instead of 10, whatever it is. That will be on January 25th of next year. Goodness gracious. So Papa Ken, oops, it's not your turn yet. Mr. Button, Mr. Dell, I'm going to pin you two. And so you can lead us in tonight's opening ritual of bringing fire and light into our families.
Okay. Do I start now?
Sure.
Okay.
Does it light now?
We light now. I'm going to light now.
Okay.
If that's okay, I'm going to light now. I'm not a big. There we go. Okay, so here's our little candle. So I wanted to share a couple things. So first off, for those of you that have not met us personally, I'm Del, and this is my partner, Bud, and we've been together for 14 years and some change, and we met at a potluck that was MCC Austin event. And that's how we also got involved with Sanctuary. in the woods, as of course I've been at MCC for I don't know how many years, since about 1999 or 2000, when Ken was senior pastor. So that is how we got involved, met each other, and got involved with Sanctuary. And it's become such a wonderful part of our lives, this group of people on a consistent basis. I was telling Ken, I think when we were last at the house, that really this group of people has become my other family, probably even my family more so than my blood family. So I'm extremely grateful for that. Do you want to say anything?
Ditto.
Okay, he's not, I'm kind of I guess I'm the one that's driving the bus here. So on week number 2, the theme for Advent is peace. So if you want to light your candle, or maybe you've already done so, I'm not sure of the exact order I was supposed to light the candle, but it's all done now and sitting on our dining room table. So I start what it means to me, and anyway, I jotted a few notes down, so forgive me for reading just a little bit, but it's what I'm going to do, and maybe share a ad lib comment on the end. But I immediately thought not of just the absence of war, but instead of peace, internal peace. 80 years ago today, as you probably know, this is the 7th, 80 years ago today, the United States was thrust into World War II after the bombing of Pearl Harbor and on that terrible morning. So how do we find peace as individuals despite conflicts that seem to only intensify? I mean, I think that we've all, whether it be political conflicts or emotional conflicts, right now the pandemic is causing all kinds of conflicts. I personally find peace a couple of different ways. First off, internal peace is kind of where I want to go with this. Internal peace in the natural world. We both enjoy hiking, we enjoy the mountains, we enjoy, Bud in particular enjoys Hippie Hollow. And here in Austin, and sometimes, sometimes you can wear a suit and sometimes not. But we enjoy the outdoors. I also enjoy and find internal peace in the mornings. I love mornings. I often am up before the sun comes up. And when it's not chilly or too warm, I'm outside having coffee on the front porch. So I love mornings, and that's how I find peace. Peace, as I continue to think about peace, it's fleeting. It can be shallow. It can be difficult to find. It's here 1 minute and it's gone the next. But for many of us on a spiritual path, and for me on a spiritual connection, a spiritual path to this group and others, peace can be found again. It isn't something that is gone forever. I'll share a really quick little story before I wind it up. In 2003, I think I flew with a couple of friends to Tibet, and we were trekking would be an overstatement, because it was some trekking, but it was also a lot of vehicle riding too. But actually, Ken might remember some of this, because I was on the board of directors of MCC when we were in the Himalayas, and we got to about 18,000 feet in the Himalayas, and I remembered that I hadn't seen trees for days because we'd been above the tree line for so long. And we stopped the Jeep and we got out, and I just remember almost feeling like I was collapsing. Part of it may have been the altitude, but part of it was just in awe of the moment, and feeling and realizing that I was in air quotes, on the top of the world, and the majesty of the snow and the Himalayas all around. And it was a very peaceful moment. It didn't last long. It was time. Back to regarding that little story is coming into our internal selves, finding peace in the moment. It's very easy, I think, sometimes when doing favorite things. Maybe it's artwork, maybe it's reading a favorite book, maybe it's reading the Bible, maybe it's taking a walk with dogs, maybe it is, I don't know, lighting a candle in the evening or fixing enchiladas for dinner. I mean, all of those things enchiladas can bring you peace, I assure you. But, doing favorite things can bring us back to what in our core makes us happy. And I think that is where peace comes from with me. I made the commitment some weeks ago that I was going to do something creative every day. Maybe that is writing, maybe it's drawing something, maybe, whatever it happens to be. That kind of centers me and brings me peace. So that's really what I wanted to share with the group. And are you going to share also?
I agree with everything you said.
Well, all right.
Nature and animals have always been probably the peaceful place for me. Both of us grew up not being a part of nature. My parents, we never went into a park or traveled. We traveled, but we didn't go to national parks or just be out in nature. So we both have that in common, because you didn't have that growing up either,
Right,
did you?
right.
So I'd say everything he said, including the nature, is my big point here.
Thank you,
The end.
gentlemen. Really.
And I think I took this, as I look at my notes, I think I lit my candle in the wrong order. So light your candle now, please.
Thank you, Del. I was just going to suggest that people do that.
Thank you.
So, absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. That was beautiful. And different ways to think of peace and what brings us peace. The theme of this week. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the story. And appreciate that enchiladas can also bring us peace. Absolutely. We got to find it what we can in the world today, don't we? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Gotta get it where you can.
Get it where you can. Papa Ken, I am going to make you real big for everybody and pass it over to you. Thanks again, Bud and Del. Appreciate it. You're up, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you, Bud and Dale. Thank you, Joe. Welcome back, everyone, to our Advent series entitled Fire and Light. We are exploring symbols and celebrations around the world during this season of the year, and finding out that all the world's great religions have some ritual, some tradition as a way of acknowledging the winter solstice, the return of the sun, the return of the light. Last week, we learned about the Maccabean Revolt and how it established the festival of Hanukkah, and we lit our menorah and we celebrated with our Jewish friends. And this week, I'm inviting you to go with me to Asia, and we're going to be exploring the symbols and the celebrations of Hinduism and Buddhism. And of course, we're going to start with Hinduism because it is the oldest of all of the world's great living religions. And the first and most important symbol of Hinduism, if we can see that, Joe, is also a word symbol like the one we encountered last week in Hebrew. It is the word sound Om. It's spelled O-M. It's actually pronounced Aum. And in Hinduism, there is the belief that this sound, this word is literally, people, when Hindus respond with the sound Om, they are literally connecting their own individual souls to a great, eternal, infinite soul. In Hinduism, in Sanskrit, the word for the individual soul is Atman, and the word for the eternal soul is Brahma. And so the object is over and over, Tat Tuam Asi, which literally means I am that. My soul is the same thing as that great soul. And so Om represents the possibility of being able to unite your individual personal soul with the great infinite and eternal soul, to make one of the two of those. Om is the most important, and it is the most sacred and universally recognized symbol of Hinduism. But we want to look at one more symbol for Hinduism today, and it is the lotus. It is also so familiar around the world as a symbol of both Buddhism and Hinduism, but it originated in Hinduism. And it represents, in Hinduism, the lotus represents the path of spiritual enlightenment. It represents, because this beautiful, pure flower literally grows up out of the mud, it represents in Hinduism the possibility that each individual human being can transcend this life and can actually become a part of the great eternal soul. It is that same oneness that is achieved through Om that the lotus represents in both Hinduism and in Buddhism. So the festival that we want to, is the festival is known, in fact, as the Festival of Light or Festival of Lights. In the Hindu calendar, the sun reappears in the zodiac every year on January the 14th. But Diwali is always celebrated usually toward the middle to the end of November. And it is a festival that is famous for these beautiful ornamental lamps. And in each home, there is a beautiful lamp that is lit in each room of every residence, and they are found in celebrations and festivals all across the Hindu world, especially on the banks of rivers. They are very, very popular and present. If we can see that next picture, Joe. And this festival also includes other activities like bonfires and fireworks and kite flying and banquets of all kinds of rich and delicate foods. But the lamps of Diwali literally celebrate life as light overcoming darkness, and as good overcoming evil, and as knowledge overcoming ignorance. And then we'll move on to the religion of Buddhism. And as you know, Buddhism is a child of Hinduism, and very much the same way that Christianity is a child of Judaism. And so most of the symbols, including the two we just talked about, the Om and the Lotus, are also symbols that are recognized around the world as symbols of Buddhism. But there is another symbol that I want to share with you from Buddhism. Joe, if we can go to that first one, the wheel. This is a a highly recognizable symbol for Buddhism. And depending on the number of spokes, it can have several different meanings. Some of the wheels have 8 spokes, some have 10 spokes, some have 12 spokes, and they represent different parts of the teachings of Buddhism. But the wheel itself literally represents the wheel of birth and rebirth, which, as you know, is so much a part of the belief of Hinduism, that through karma, through our individual actions, we are born and reborn until we are able, through this process of samsara, to be able to escape the wheel and to be able to move on into that great and eternal soul that Hinduism bequeathed to Buddhism. And then there is another unusual symbol in Buddhism that is very popular but kind of controversial, and it is the swastika. You may know that the swastika has been found as a symbol in ancient cultures literally all over the world. It is a very important symbol within Buddhism, where it is a totally positive symbol. It represents good luck and prosperity and good fortune and eternity. And if you travel around Asia, as I have, it is not unusual to find the swastika imprinted within the palm and on the feet of statues and replicas of the Buddha all over Asia. It is that important of a symbol. So important that Buddhists call it literally the seal of Buddha's heart. In Buddhism, the swastika is the seal of Buddha's heart. And the festival that we want to visit in Buddhism this evening, that celebrates this season of the year, is the festival of Loy Krathong. In 1968, I was in Bangkok, Thailand, and a number of friends and I, in late November, we went out to eat dinner in a restaurant, and we had dinner and we sat there talking for several hours. We had heard that the city was preparing for a festival, but we didn't know what it was. And so we went in. When we went in, it was still light outside. When we came out several hours later, we came out to this amazing spectacle. If you've ever been to Bangkok, or if you've ever seen pictures of the city, you know that the city is laced with narrow waterways called klongs. The klongs are the way that many people move around the city in boats, a very important part of the commerce of the city, especially early in the morning, late in the afternoon. The boats along the klongs are piled high with beautiful flowers and tropical fruits and arts and crafts. And when we walked out of that restaurant that night, we had to cross several klongs to get back to our hotel. And every one of them was just ablaze with these beautiful little vessels floating out into the water. This was the festival of Loy Krathong. In Thai, the word Loy means to float, and Krathong means literally a basket or some small vessel. And for this celebration, these little vessels are made usually out of bread, or they are made out of banana leaves, something that will be biodegradable, because each one of them is an offering to the goddess of water. And every one of them traditionally will have a candle on it, and will also have an incense stick. The incense stick is an offering, an acknowledgement of the spirits of the elders. And then there can be any number of other things that are placed on the krathong. And sometimes it will be baht, it will be coins, which are to ask the goddess of water for prosperity in the coming year. Sometimes it will be a clipping of hair or trimmings from fingernails, which are symbols of releasing the past and moving from the past this is a feast that actually lasts for 5 days. And it begins with this beautiful ceremony of floating the baskets. And then it includes kite flying ceremonies and parades and beauty contests and music festivals. But here's the interesting thing about it for us in the West. It is traditionally known as the time when Thai young people lose their virginity. During these 5 days, it is expected that young Thai people will lose their virginity. So just like everything else in Asia, these festivals have so many different layers. They have so many different meanings, but they are all about welcoming light back into the world during this time of the year. I want to end by sharing with you the quote that I shared last week from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. He said, "Although my faith is not your faith, and your faith is not my faith, if each of us is free to light our own flame, then together we can banish the darkness of the world." The picture you are looking at right now is the river Chao Phraya, which runs through the middle of Bangkok. And the monument you see in the back is Wat Arun, which is one of the oldest and most important of the temples in Bangkok and in Thailand. And Joe, I think I missed the part of the third symbol that I wanted to talk about, because it is different from symbols in other religions, because Buddhism, unlike other religions, literally believes that images of the Buddha are sacred themselves. They are symbols of everything that the religion of Buddhism stands for. And what you're looking at there is the most venerated and precious symbol of Buddhism in the world. It is the Emerald Buddha. The Emerald Buddha is about 2.5 feet tall. It's actually jade. Its existence has been documented for almost 2,000 years. The tradition in Buddhism is that the Emerald Buddha was created by the gods to provide prosperity and good fortune to whatever nation owned it. And so throughout history, we have documentation that the Emerald Buddha has existed in what is now India, Laos, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, and now, of course, it has ended up in Thailand. In 1432, in the year 1432, legend says that the Buddha, this Emerald Buddha, had been covered with plaster in order to conceal it so that it couldn't be stolen. And it was in a small minor temple in the city of Chiang Rai, and lightning struck the temple, and the Buddha was knocked off of its pedestal, and the plaster was cracked, and people realized what it was. And so that began a series of wars until finally, in the early 18th century, King Rama I of Siam went and took the Buddha, brought it back to Krung Thep, which is now Bangkok, and built this gorgeous temple, which today is known as Wat Phra Kaeo, the temple of the Emerald Buddha in Bangkok. I've been into the temple 4 times now. The Emerald Buddha, as you see it there, is up on a pedestal about 30 feet high. You can't, no one can stand in the temple. You have to take off your shoes, you have to crawl in on your hands and knees, and then sit cross-legged in the temple. But every image of Buddha within Buddhism is considered a symbol of the entire religion. But in Buddhism, the Buddha is only allowed to be represented in one of 3 ways. The Buddha either has to be sitting cross-legged, like the Emerald Buddha, or it has to be standing, or he has to be reclining. And Joe, if we have that other picture, this is a picture of the largest reclining Buddha in the world. It is in Wat Po in Bangkok, and I was there. This was taken in 2009. I was there. I visited this temple first in 1967, and then returned in 2009. So these great religions of the East are rich in symbols. They are rich in ritual, and they all have celebrations which acknowledge this season of the year, which is the return of light, representing hope, love, faith, knowledge, and peace. Joby?
Thank you so very much, Ken. I'm not sure if you all can hear me well or not. We're having internet issues. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Fine.
Okay, I want to put us back onto gallery mode. So normally when I pop out slides or I put Ken on pin like that where you can see him large, you guys get put back into speaker mode. So if you pop yourself back onto gallery mode. So tonight is a conversation, as you know, each night we're going to have somebody special like Bud and Dell did today, light our candle and lead us in that. And then we're going to have a teaching. And then the last part, the conversation, is about a different tradition each week. Before we start though, Ken, of course, you said something that caught the attention of everyone, okay? When you said that we're all expected to lose our virginity this week, I think is this week. And for some of us, that wouldn't be a new thing, you know, as we're aging gracefully. But the question in the chat is a serious question. Is it expected that both male and female young people lose their virginity that week?
Yes, it is. It is. It's, you know, it sounds kind of strange to say an expectation that you lose your virginity, but it's almost kind of like the tradition of prom night. You know, in the United States, there is that kind of lore behind what's going to happen on prom. You know, is that if you're still a virgin, you're going to lose your virginity on prom night. That's sort of the way the expectation is. You know, certainly not all young people lose their virginity. It's just that if you are wanting to and waiting to, here's your opportunity. You can find somebody who will accommodate you during Loy Krathong.
I still missed the email about the whole prom thing. Doggone it. But anyway. Oh, thanks, Ken. That was wonderful. I love this whole concept of fire and light and bringing this all together. So tonight, what we're asking of you is if you had any favorite traditions. I hope you all had a chance to watch Cheryl's amazing video of her tradition in her family of getting jammies. I think that was so her mom assumed that all 3 kids would be clean to start off Christmas morning, maybe. But Kristen Vandermeer, are you chewing right now? Because I know that you sent in a story and you want to share your tradition. So we'll just share.
I'm good. I'm between bites.
Between bites.
Excuse me. Okay, there we go. Between bites. So from the time I was a very, very, very little girl, my grandfather would dress up as Santa Claus. And so my family, it's my mom's side of the family, it's Italian, which means Christmas Eve is the holiday. By noon on Christmas Day, we're done. So Christmas Eve, everybody goes to Grandma and Grandpa's house. And I lived in Brooklyn. It was like a row house. And at some point, Grandpa would go down to the basement, sneak out the back door and come up the alley, ringing his bells. And all of us kids would be like, oh my God, Santa's here. And I can absolutely remember believing it really was Santa. I can also remember being the first one to figure out it wasn't, because I am the oldest of my generation in my family. The years went on, my grandfather got too old to do it. My various uncles took it on, my dad took it on, and it was always kind of fun. My like I said, I'm the oldest in this generation. My youngest cousin is 20 years younger than me. So we had many, many years of enjoying this Christmas tradition. Eventually, though, we hit a space as the family was growing where we didn't have any young children. We didn't have anyone who believed in Santa. And my grandparents had passed, and we were doing Christmas Eve at my aunt's house. And we're like, some adult of my parents' generation was like, do we have to do this? And we're like, yeah, we have to do this. So my cousin Anthony took it on, and a couple other in-law cousins have actually taken it on. And Jody, I'm guessing you have the photos, but it became rather rowdy, like very rowdy. It became a lot about gag gifts, and you can't get your gift unless you sit on Santa's lap. And he might ask you questions like, the year my cousin got a DUI, Santa will say, did you have any legal trouble this year? Or the year my cousin, got in trouble at college, you'd be like, how are your grades at school? And really just a rowdy time. But Santa still sneaks out the garage and comes around to the front of the house with his bells ringing. We do now have another generation of young kids who believe in Santa, are a little bit in awe and a little bit scared. Here's my Uncle Frank sitting on Santa's lap. You can see the laughter in all of these photos. If you scroll down, you'll see Elf the Helper. That's my cousin Paul. He actually wore that sweater to Christmas. The hat was the only part that was a costume. But this was an in-law cousin who was doing it. I think I put a few photos in if you just want to keep scrolling down there. Just proof that we do have young children, and we try to take some nice photos along the way. So there's a child not being too emotionally scarred of my cousin Anthony as Santa. What's the next one? I think the next one is an adult being embarrassed. My Aunt Doreen, who hosts, and my cousin Michael. And again, sometimes us adults try to be like, thanks, Santa, I'll take my gift. And we're like, no. You don't get your gift unless you sit on Santa's lap. And hilarity ensues. So I hope we never lose that tradition. Christmas Eve is full of lots and lots of laughter with my family.
Oh, that's fabulous, Kristen. Thank you so much. That's wonderful.
Really cool. Always have a Santa.
I'm thankful for that person when the question was asked, do we have to do this anymore? You're like, of course we have to do this. Yeah, that's the person that kept it going.
Not Santa.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kristen. Hey, Darcel, where are you on your comfy chair? Is Darcel here?
Yes.
There you go. Oh, there you are, Darcel, on your comfy chair.
Yes. Well, Ken will remember this. I don't see Tom on, maybe because of the internet. The
Yes.
first
He's
year,
here.
the
We
first
can hear you,
year
Darcel.
I lived out with y'all in LA, every night Tom would come home with boxes and boxes of lights, and we would put them on the outside of the house, and we put them on the tree, and then we put more on the house. And one night we were watching TV, and I think it was Channel 4, and here comes our house being shown on TV. And also, Ken, do you remember when he put the flamingos out in the yard by the little tree that he had planted?
Yeah, yes, that was about 1987. We had a beautiful jacaranda tree in our front yard, and Tom put out a nativity scene of all pink flamingos. There was Mary Flamingo and Joseph Flamingo and Yesu Bambino Flamingo, and there were the three wise flamingos coming around the corner of the house with their little beards on. And just about every news station in LA came out and took films, and we were all over television and everything for that. And of course, being the pastor of a church, I thought, well, there goes my career.
But that was my first Christmas without any snow, and my first Christmas away from my family. And I have to say, it was probably the best Christmas. You know, I mean, every Christmas I have with Tom and Ken is amazing, but that was extra special because, you know, it wasn't snowing outside. I actually wore shorts on Christmas Day, which I couldn't believe. But yeah, the flamingos, I just think that's, and the fact that he even put little beards on them out of cotton balls, I think. But it was something.
So this is where people think Tom is this nice, quiet and refined and, withheld young man. And when Tom shows up, and if Ken were to pan his computer camera there tonight, and you'd see the amazing decorations, that's Tom bringing years and years and years of his profession of set design into homes, and apparently onto front yards too, Darcel. So that's the gift we always have with Tom, that so many, when you've been here, you never forget, right? The Thanksmas tree, the Christmas tree that still has how many more tens of thousands of lights to go on it? I mean, so thank you, Darcel, for sharing that. Let's see here.
Thank
Janice.
you.
Absolutely, hon. Janice, you've got a story.
Well, I was just telling you about mine and Roberta's tradition. When we first got together, and for many years after, she wasn't allowed with my family at my parents' home or my sister's home or anywhere. And so we had to split up on Christmas a lot. And we just established early on that Christmas Eve was ours. And we would go out to eat, get real dressed up and go out to eat and in a fancy place. And then there'd be a candlelight service somewhere where we would attend, often at MCC actually. And so we'd do that. And then our favorite thing was to ride around. Sometimes I had neighborhoods already picked out, just looking at lights. That was one of her favorite things to do. We did it several times, usually before Christmas, but definitely Christmas Eve was our time to go around and look at everybody's decorations and lights and stuff, in the dark. And we held on to that pretty tightly as our time together. It was the time we shared our gifts with each other and that sort of thing. Then I'd have to leave the next day and go to be with my family. Almost inevitably, there was one time, I didn't say this in what I sent, but there was one time, probably more than one time, that she literally went to Georgetown with me from Wimberley, and we stayed in a bed and breakfast in Georgetown, and she stayed at the bed and breakfast, and I had to go to my family's. Now, this is the same family that later on we lived with my mother and kept take care of her.
Of course.
So miracles do happen.
Absolutely.
And but that was a Christmas tradition that we held last year. I mean, we did it last year. So this will be difficult this year.
Well, I can witness
Yeah,
that
buddy.
it's for years, at least the years I knew them, it's always been Christmas with Ken and Tom, because I remember entering their home in Chicago in August. I remember it was a very warm day, and here was this charming, rugged, but charming desk sitting there, just newly made, clearly. And I said to Tom, "What is that?" And Tom said, "Well, Cynthia," he said, "that's Santa's workshop." I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yep." He said, "Tomorrow," he said, "I'm taking that out to Northbrook, Illinois. The fake snow, this is about August 7th. The fake snow will be spread all over this beautiful home." He showed me a picture. "And we will do the Christmas commercials for Sears." So there we were having Christmas in their living room in August.
Cheers. Absolutely. Because Cynthia, so that's so cute. Cynthia, you'll have to know that when Cheryl and I moved here onto the farm, one of the first things a lesson we were given by Tom was how to load the dishwasher. Because from all his years working, doing the work and the photo shoots with Sears, he knew exactly how to place everything. So we place it the same way every night.
Oh, and in one of those years, we decided to do a madrigal dinner for over 100 people. Ken
Oh, yeah.
got our madrigal choir together, 16 voice, 8-part choir, which we worked hard to get together. But anyway, we didn't know how we were going to feed all those people. Well, not to worry. Tom had gotten a giant pig, and it unthawed in their bathtub. And, and then they cooked it outdoors. This is all at Christmas.
Oh, there you guys. Thank you, Cynthia, for some fabulous memories of
I have
those
to,
two.
I have to tell you, I had forgotten all about that, Cynthia, but I had forgotten Tom brought that whole huge pig home, and he named it Contessa della Porca, and it was frozen. And
Yeah.
it thawed out in our bathtub
Yeah, that's
over
what,
about 4 days. And then we took it to church to cook it in
right.
the oven, and it was too big. And so Tom had to cut it in half
Oh,
and cook a half at a time. And then when he presented it at the dinner, he had a big garland right over the middle of it where he had cut it in half, so
Oh, yeah.
that you couldn't tell that it had been cut in half. Contessa della Porca.
and the apple was in the mouth of the Contessa. I remember
Of
that.
course. Oh, of course. Cynthia, you'll be glad to know that even though it wasn't Christmas, Ken cooked a big turkey here for Thanksgiving. We had a few folks over, not the normal massive crowd. But when the turkey was
Right,
finally done, we came over and Ken presented it for photographs, of course. And I was a bit late, of course. So when I came over, I said, no, Ken, I just want to take a picture of the turkey. He said, it's undressed. And so he actually dressed the turkey back up so I could take a, I'm like, I think a naked turkey
There you
picture
go.
would have been okay. You know, it's a,
No.
no. Oh, thank you,
Another
Cynthia.
story
Yeah.
I wanted to add.
One more, add
Another
it in.
story I wanted to add was about Tibet. Darlene and I also, my partner of 40 years who has passed away, but we also went to Tibet and spent 2 weeks there. And I wanted to add that it was a very interesting experience. We were on our own and we could kind of steer where we went. And they took us to all these different monasteries, the Sierra, the Drepung, they're in all the guidebooks, and you see rows and rows of monks praying and everything. And about day 4, we said to our guide, excuse me, and by the way, the guide had been raised in India, even though he was Tibetan. So he spoke wonderful English. But we said, are there any convents for women here? And he said, well, sure. And we said, well, you don't take us to them. Could we go see one? And he said, well, you don't want to. And we went, well, why? And then he explained, he said, well, remember, we go to these monasteries, and after you hear the chanting and praying, remember, we go inside and we go into the small room, and a stone or a jewel is revealed. That's the treasure of that particular monastery. He said, the women have no money, Cynthia. There's nothing to show you. And we said, well, we want to see the people. So we had to keep repeating ourselves. And right in the middle of Lhasa, the next day, he took us to the most wonderful place. It was a convent. And of course, it was packed full of young lesbian women. The energy level was so high, it was unreal. And just when I thought I had seen it all, around the corner came, I called her the Mother Superior, in her robes, with her shaven head, but on her feet were her Adidas tennis shoes. So, and she explained a lot to us also, and thanked us profusely. And of course, you are to leave money, and they had none of that arranged for that one. Oh, the monasteries had it all arranged where you're to leave your money, but with them, they had nothing. So we just said, we want to, oh, she was so grateful. But it just goes to show what was valued in that culture was those small ancient memorabilia. We valued the people. And by the way, the women were writing the scripts for the prayer wheels. They were printing them on big tablets and running them. So it was wonderful experience.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. And thanks, Janice, before that. Jane Ann, I have been trying to download the picture of your tree, honey, but my internet will absolutely not let me. We have like pencil bandwidth tonight.
That's okay.
Over
Can
and
you
over.
see it in the background? It's set up.
That's
So
better.
it is.
during
Yeah, live.
during lockdown last year, this must have been where my head was at. because it was the 30th anniversary since my mom had given me the tree at my original housewarming party in Bloor West in Toronto, I was actually going to throw the tree out at the end of the year because anyway, all that to say, it's up again, and I keep trimming it off because it has literally no needles on it. But when I took it down last year, every year from 1990, when she gave it to me as a housewarming gift, I would have a tree trimming party, and I would walk around with boxes handing out ornaments, and everybody would be meeting at the tree and conversing at the tree and drinking at the tree and putting the ornaments on. When Stephen was alive in my life, he had one rule, and that was that once the ornaments went up on the tree, they were not moving, because I'm a little anal about my tree. I like everything in its place. So I would redo it a lot of the times. But the rule at the party was you couldn't do, it had to stay the way it was. But last year, as I took it down, I packed everything in boxes representing the 30 years. So that this year, when I went to put them on the tree, there are 31 themes. The first year, and I'll go down it really fast, but the first year was the orange lights and the copper balls. And then it was Santas, angels, fruit, red, anything red, snowmen and women, homemade. One year it was all homemade ornaments, crystal, some of it's, there's Waterford crystal on my tree, insects, butterflies and birds, international. Then there was the millennium in 2000. There are martini shakers, 3 olives, and bottles on the tree, animals, shopping. There's a mall queen, there's fashion, there's dresses, there's purses and shoes. In 1990, long before I was merchandising and part-time for Pier 1, the hand-painted Le Bien ornaments are from China, but they're painted with these tiny brushes on the inside. And I have one every year from 1990. I have 30 of them.
Oh,
And they're just amazing. I actually have broken one, but then I had glass blown ornaments from Italy, stars, stuffed toys, sports, American. I have a White House. I have an ornament from the White House, green, orange, which I love orange. Afternoon tea, all the traditions, afternoon tea, chips, pop, you name it, it's on the tree. Travel, my camels, my crowns from Buckingham Palace, and my Bethlehem olive wood from Bethlehem, and stuff from Mexico, hearts, bows, snowmen, and then more recently, Maya the dog. And then last year, 3 glass hearts that were in memory of my parents that the funeral director gives. And it has one for my mom, one for my dad, and then my aunt had passed the year before. So those 3 glass hearts arrived last Christmas. And then I have a COVID syringe and mask. So brings us right up to the present. And the thing is loaded. There aren't any needles on it now, but it's loaded with, oops. I don't know if you can see it.
Yep, it's good.
Yeah.
I can.
So the tree is my main tradition. I just love it. And it just brings back so many great memories of Christmases past and now Christmas present. And it's lasted 31 years, and I probably won't throw it out again. I keep wanting to order a new tree, but I can't bear to part with it.
I don't think there's any good reason to part with that, Jane Ann. My God, the history, that's quite something. The focus for you. It's a project. Good grief.
And you know what? It's still in the original box. It was $399 in 1990 from Wheel and Cullen. Those of you who are Canadian would know that name. They're famous gardeners and nursery people, but it still had the original price tag, and it's still in its original box.
Goodness. Wow. Thank you, Jane Ann. You are a person
So it's a long-standing tradition.
You've always got a story and pictures for us. I so appreciate you. Anybody else out there, Peter or Dell or Dr. Aaron or Anna, anybody, Glenda, that has a story for tonight? We're just about the top of the hour, but I don't want to, leave anybody out just because you didn't send something ahead of time. A favorite tradition?
I am going to try to share. This is Anna, but my internet has been very off today, so we will see.
Oh.
But my tradition is a mixture of like Cheryl, we would always get pajamas on Christmas Eve, but ours were on our bed when we came home from church. And as we got older, and I was like, how do you always get those on our bed when we come home from church? And my mom was like, you never noticed that I always forgot something and had to run back in. And like Kristen, when I was in college, I'm the youngest, I was in college, and my mom didn't put the pajamas on the bed, and we were all like, what is going on? And my sister and brother are 9 and 10 years older, but we were like, wait, no, like we still want the pajamas, like why are there not pajamas? So she still carries that tradition, and even when I'm not home, whenever I make my visit after Christmas, I always have a set of pajamas waiting. So we like getting our new pajamas for Christmas regardless. And she said she started it because she wanted us to look good in our Christmas morning pictures, and so she knew we had good pajamas.
No matter
There's a
what.
lesson here. Yeah, there's a lesson here, and we don't really have like young parents on this group, but maybe like even grandparenting or whatever tradition you start, be prepared to do it forever. But
Sure.
right? The reason is because it matters. It
Yes.
matters.
Yep, and just like Jane Ann said, the memories it brings up, right? I say ours is not necessarily a tradition. Cheryl and I were talking about this too. Clearly, she had a childhood tradition, but one of the things we loved, our lives in Canada, obviously were surrounded from the church, MCC Toronto, one of the largest churches in Canada, and we on Christmas Eve had the largest Christmas Eve service in all of Canada at a place called Roy Thompson Hall, which would be like down in Broadway in Manhattan, for Americans. Beautiful stage. And the wonderful thing was we had our Christmas service, and it was Christmas Eve. It was right after another big concert. So the place was just decked out. It just was one of the most magical places I've ever been, especially on Christmas Eve. But we're working it. Right? We started planning this thing in August with meetings and details. And one of the most wonderful things, one year I was able to open it, and we sang Christmas carols for 20 minutes while folks were getting in their seats. 2,500 people, 20 minutes, 3.5 Christmas carols. It's like bam, bam, bam. And then the service goes on, all the music, the performers over the roof. And then during communion, check this out. It was an event that maybe people weren't planning on attending communion, but we had 3 stories in this hall, and we had it so organized with a floor manager and overall managers, and people would go out. They were all staged at the ends of the rows. They would go out. There would be the wafers and the wine all out there. And in 3 Christmas carols, we served communion out of your seats and back into your seats to 2,500 people every Christmas Eve. And it was like, when that was done, you're like, yes, it was just this biggest part of the night. And then our job also was to end the finale right at the stroke of midnight, right? Partly because that was cool and that was the schedule, but also because then we had 1 hour to leave the building and clean everyone and everybody out of there to not get charged by the unions, right? On Christmas morning. So see, Kristen, the front of the church is beautiful and gorgeous and full of, ritual and beauty. Behind the church, it's a job, man. But it was one of the most wonderful things we did. And we would always get home, I don't know, 2 in the morning or so. And sometimes we would then have Christmas with Rachel, and then we'd either jump in the car, put her on an airplane, we'd drive up to Michigan. But it was just that balance of what we were creating for so many people, just an experience that was beyond words. And yet the work of it was probably one of the most rewarding things I think we were ever a part of, a monstrous choir of 100, 102 people, feeding the choir, just all the background stuff. So It may not seem like a favorite tradition to you all, but I think that was one of my favorite consistencies, you know, doing it over 15 years while we were in Canada. Yeah.
So Joby, it's Glenda here. That's clearly one of my traditions as well, because as long as I was resident in Canada over Christmas, I never missed it. And you're right, it was, I'm looking for a word. It was just that, whatever word I'm looking for. And the other magical thing about that, though, is to see multiple generations, because grandma and the kids and the whole family, and there was a solemnness about the place that night. And I mean, the venue, of course, is spectacular. Adding that to the whole event and the contribution that you guys made to our was just profound.
Well, thank you, Glenda. We knew many people came to that one service that never entered our church, but they were part of our church family because they were part of Christmas Eve year over year over year. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ken, I know you've got a Christmas tradition we might close out with. Kristen was talking
I'd
about
spoken to you earlier today, Joe, about we have this tradition. When you were talking a little bit earlier, Kristen, about when you start something, you have to finish it. We started when our first grandchild was 1 year old. We started the pickle prize tradition, where we had a pickle on the Christmas tree, and he had to come in and he had to find the pickle, and then he would get a prize. And then we got a second grandchild, and we got a second pickle, and then a third grandchild and a third pickle. And that oldest grandchild is now 25 years old. He will be here in 2 weeks, and he will come in that front door and go directly to that tree to try to find that pickle. And I tried to research this and found out that it started in Bavaria in the 19th century, and the pickles were real, and the pickle was the prize. The child found the pickle on the tree and then got to eat the pickle. Now, of course, we have pickle presents wrapped and under the tree, you know, and all of that, but they'll be here in 2 weeks, and 2 of them are in their 20s and 1 is 14, and they will all go right to that tree, the first thing, you know, to try to find those pickles. Joe, I did think of another tradition today that's so important, because we are still, you know, just beyond World AIDS Day. During the 1980s and 90s, when so many people were dying of AIDS, and we were doing so many funerals and memorial services in MCC, a tradition started that after the funeral or the memorial service, everybody would go to the home of these mostly young men who had died, mostly young gay men. They all had tons of Christmas ornaments. Their Christmas ornaments would be out on their bed, and everybody would take an ornament to remember that person by. And I saw 3 ornaments on our tree today that came from that tradition of when someone died of AIDS. All of their Christmas ornaments were put out by their family, and then everybody went and chose an ornament and to remember them by every year when we put them on the tree.
Thank you, Ken.
Ken, and there's a store in my town that it's called Kitrus Glass. It's hand-blown glass. It has a tree full of hand-blown pickles. I'm sending you one.
Oh,
Sending you a
please,
hand-blown
yes.
glass pickle for your tree.
I'm just going to throw this in because
Oh, look, Del, what's
Ann
that?
talked about AIDS, and this is from our tree, and
Aw.
it's Elizabeth Taylor, and remember she had that white dog.
Mhm.
You know what kind of dog it was?
Like a Shih Tzu.
You can see it good.
Some kind of a Shih Tzu. And you recall that, of course, Elizabeth Taylor was one of the first people to speak out and saying against the government, and you've got to love these people that are dying. I mean, you know, Elizabeth Taylor was one of those folks. And then, of course, there's a red ribbon. And this is on our tree every year. It means a lot to me just because it represents people who we all lost all those years ago of AIDS. But anyway, and Elizabeth Taylor, of course, speaking out as Princess Di did and many others, famous people, those in Hollywood. But anyway, I just wanted to share this with you.
Thank you,
nice.
Dell.
Thanks, Dell.
Dell, if you were here when Ken interviewed Steve Peters, he said that Liz Taylor was one of those heroes of the AIDS movement, of really one of the voices of strong woman voice to bring healing and to bring justice. So absolutely. Thank you. Ken, I was going to have you try and spin your computer around, just the camera, so these people could see how easy it would be to pick out a pickle on your sparse tree. All you got to do is turn the computer around. And then as you do that, Bud and Dell, would you like to bless us off in the spirit of peace here after Ken shows us his, Ken, I know I put you on the spot there, sorry. None of your technicians are able to help.
Exactly. How do you want me to?
You see it, Joby?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, go. Could you guys see how easy that would be to find the pickle on that?
It's full.
And Tom's not done yet. At dinner every night he says, please put more. We're not, no, it looks great.
No.
You see the ladder there? They still have to climb up there and put some more stuff up there.
Didn't you come up there today?
I put up a couple things.
How many lights are on there? I have 600 on mine, but how many lights? That's got to be a couple of thousand.
We think about 3,000.
Amazing.
My voice, my head still rings with that night of that Madrigal dinner. We're decorating in the afternoon, a church basement, if you can imagine, that was totally transformed. And all I can remember is Tom saying, more lights, more garland, more lights, more garland.
Yes.
And to her dying day, my partner Darlene would say that as she was mostly decorating our tree. Oh, I've got to play Tom Cole, more lights, more garland.
Amazing. Beautiful.
Tom makes everything magical. You all, I will try and get some pictures maybe for next time or the next time of Sanctuary. And Darcel, we left the house for you and Carly to put more lights and more garland on. So I guess we'll need to figure that out. But Tom gave me 2 lessons this year in lights, and they both make the place look even more beautiful than it did last year. So Tom, I know that you're there somewhere in that living room. Thank you so much for obviously all the memories you've given so many of us with lights and garland and flamingos. Bud and Dell, send us off, my friends.
How about you? Well, I don't know quite what to say, but I'll just be brief and say thank you to everyone. Go in peace. Merry Christmas. We'll see you in another week. And let's remember all of those that are less fortunate than us and that need friends and need food and need shelter, and those who are, I'll say one more, I probably shouldn't do this, but if you if you're on Instagram at all, there is a group called the AIDS Memorial, and it is stories about people who have died of AIDS. And there's some really wonderful, wonderful stories, and keep those memories of people that have died in your hearts. And peace be with you. And thank you all for sharing the last hour with us.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Peace. Go in
Bless you,
peace.
everyone. Find peace this week, Aaron says. Absolutely. And next week, the community conversation is
The peace of the Lord